And welcome back to Who Would Win. Today's Who Would Win comes to us from Red Elastic 98. The thumbnail and the image in the back comes from us from Blue Midnight 04. James Bond versus Ethan Hunt. Now, I was actually surprised when I chose this one because I've seen James Bond and Ethan Hunt show up multiple times in different Who Would Win suggestions. But it's never been just solely. They've usually been like a 3-on-1 with like him, Bourne, Ethan Hunt, or him, John Wick, Ethan Hunt. So, yeah, this is the only person, as far as I could tell, who, at least up to this point, has given me James Bond versus Ethan Hunt. Now, we should note that there are multiple incarnations of James Bond, while there's really only one Ethan Hunt. And it's kind of hard to... what's the best way for me to say this sentence? It's kind of hard to say how they kind of stack up, because it's never really indicated where in his life, like age-wise, Ethan Hunt actually is. Like, we get he started out younger, and, he's gotten older, but where is he in terms of age in his life? Is he the 55-year-old guy we know Tom Cruise actually is? Or is he a guy who's more like in his 40s or something like that? Because it's clear that he's somewhere in his, like, 30s, mid-40s at his youngest. But we know, again, Tom Cruise is like 50-something years old. He's just aged really well, and he's in great shape. Whereas Bond, again, it all depends on which version of Bond you're going with. Anywhere with the Sean Connery one, Sean Connery's Bond, he ended up somewhere, I want to say, in his late 40s, early 50s. Roger Moore's, same. I mean, we're talking about the Bond, not the actor themselves. Pierce Brosnan's, I think you can make the argument he ended like his movie run in the early 40s. And Lazenby, we only got one movie with him, so he's probably somewhere in his 30s. Dalton, only 2 films, so we only got him probably in his 30s as well. Daniel Craig's, we did get him probably going into his late 30s, early 40s. Though we know Daniel Craig, I think, is around 50-something, early 50s, or just hitting 50s now. Again, we're talking about Bond, not the actor, though I am curious what age Daniel Craig actually is. I think he is... he's 52 years old. Yep, makes sense. Yeah. I knew he was somewhere in his 50s, give or take, early 50s. So, and, to be fair, again, that is the actor, not necessarily the depiction of Bond we're getting. So I'd say Bond's somewhere, probably more in his late 40s, into Daniel Craig Bond. So we have the age difference, the age gap there. Again, it's impossible to say where they're really saying Ethan Hunt is literally chronologically in terms of his age, but I would say they're probably depicting him somewhere in his 40s. Still, though, that's neither here nor there. What do these combatants bring to the table? And the thing of it is, when it comes to a straight-out fight, there's not much I can compare or contrast between these two. It's pretty much going to be, do they have a weapon on them, and can they beat each other in a fisticuffs fight? Because they're spies. Particularly, Ethan Hunt is more of a anti-terrorist kind of guy, although he's also an espionage and spy as well. Bond is obviously secret agent, MI6, so forth and so on. So to bring in like gadgets and stuff like that really wouldn't help in a fight. So we really got to look at them individually as combatants. Ethan Hunt probably has a firearm on him, and we know that Bond almost always carries a Walther PPK. Though Bond is more than capable of using just about any weapon he gets his hands on. Same with Ethan, more than likely. So then you just have to factor in really the hand-to-hand combatant skills of him. Now, Ethan Hunt, I'm going to get this up right now because I've been trying to figure out what Ethan Hunt's actual fighting, not Ethan Daniel. Who the hell is Ethan Daniel? That just popped up randomly. I was looking for Ethan Hunt. Anyway, Ethan Hunt. So Ethan Hunt, what exactly does he know in terms of fighting? Because it's clear, Ethan Hunt is a pretty capable hand-to-hand fighter, but it's not like he's a master martial artist or anything like that. It's clear he's been trained in certain fighting styles, but he's a bit more kind of go with the flow in many ways and kind of improvising when he can. So like what we can find with the official fandom, at least for Mission Impossible, is that Condition. He's an agent and former soldier of Army's 75th Ranger Regiment, so he's in top physical condition. But in terms of martial arts experience, okay, according to his profile, he's been taught Brazilian martial arts like capoeira. When you watch the movies, that does make some sense. He's doing a lot of kind of circular movements. He's doing kind of a lot of evading and trying to get his opponent into kind of locks and things along those lines. He's shown limited fighting ability and kicking a CIA employee while stealing the NOC list. But he is later knocked out in a confrontation by the elderly but more experienced Jim Phelps. He uses various kicks, holds, and flips, attacks its terrorists on terrorist personnel during the next two movies. In the second installment, we see he's using techniques inspired by capoeira, which fits with this profile. He also uses Aikido and Jiu-Jitsu, which, as far as a little I do know about, a little I think we all know about the CIA, which they allow us to know. That does seem to be those do seem to be techniques that are implemented with the CIA, which so it makes sense. Technically, Ethan Hunt is CIA, but he's kind of a little beyond the CIA. He's MIF, I believe it is. So he's he's his own unit. Anyway, during his fight with Ambrose. In the third installment, while still using some capoeira, he utilizes techniques from the Kisei fighting method. And in a training scene with Lindsay Ferris, we see him teaching her the Filipino martial arts of Eskrima, which is stick fighting. He displays several extremely complex techniques in the fourth movie, including a section of capoeira and taekwondo moves. During his prison escape, he mainly utilizes karate and judo, and he resorts to combine capoeira, ninjutsu, because he's a spy, taekwondo, and karate moves and strategies. During the sixth movie, which we saw, which I've seen the last two, he's shown using techniques from the Keisei fighting method. Keisei, I'm going to look that up because that's one I'm not from. I'm familiar with actually quite a few fighting styles, but that's not one that comes to mind. Keisei fighting method. And as well as techniques from Eskrima and Krav Maga. Again, another popular one with, from what I understand, government fighter. When you're actually trained in those government agencies. Again, from the little we are to believe, from the little they let us know about that stuff. The Keisei fighting method, though, is a self-defense system created to act and react while defending yourself. That, you know what, that makes complete sense from what we see him do in the movies. Absolutely. The martial arts systems feature movies such as the Batman series with Christian Bale and Jack Reacher with Tom Cruise, as well as obviously Mission Impossible. So, okay, that makes sense. But with James Bond, it becomes a little bit of a different thing. So, with James Bond, we know for a fact that he does have judo skills. Hence where in Goldfinger he asks Pussy Galore, "Who taught you judo?" Because he knew a judo technique when he saw it. So, he knew a judo technique when he saw it because he knows judo. He probably also is familiar with Aikido. Character, there we go. Character. I got to get his martial arts background up. Normally, I'm pretty good at remembering this stuff, but when it's dealing with these kind of guys and just how broad their characters have gone throughout the history, it gets a little muddled. So I always have to refresh myself a little bit. Let's see here. Inspired tastes, cuisine, smoking, drugs, looks, abilities. There we go. Besides being armed, noted that Bond is a very good shot and the best in the Secret Service. He's still beaten by the instructor, something that add realism to Bond's character. That's all well and good. I don't care about his firing skill. I'll tell you right now, Bond's a better shot than Ethan Hunt. I'll give him Bond that any day, unless it's like they're like going sniper to sniper. Maybe then Ethan's got the edge, but yeah, okay, hand-to-hand combat. Bond is not very good, but it's still beatable by others. Basically, there you go. But same with Ethan Hunt. Both these guys get their asses kicked quite a bit. Include skiing, hand-to-hand combat, underwater golf. Okay, that's great. That's literary. I need actual information there that they're not giving me there. Fictional character, Britannia, Bonds. Okay, let's try this. 1 second here, James Bond. And we'll go with that one, I guess. All right. Okay, they're really not giving me much here for Bond. I know a while back when I did a Bond versus, I was able to find a list of actual techniques he knows, like fighting styles that he's capable of using. Let's see here now. Styles that he knows. That's what I meant to say. Anyway. Let's see here. Fighting style. this is going to be a very, very irritating video if I can't get a decent idea of what he's capable of doing in terms of actual fight. That's irritating. Point being is that Bond is quite powerful. Is a very exceptional fighter in his own right. But here's the thing. I'm going to kind of get this fight out. This is going to be a quick fight regardless. If we're putting Ethan Hunt up against either George Lazenby, Sean Connery, Timothy Dalton, or Roger Moore, Ethan Hunt is winning the fight. Because all those guys are unfortunately products of the time. When you actually see those guys fight, it's very clunky. It's very, throw a punch. They're not moving at great speed. They're doing they are doing what they can for the fighting that they're doing. And that's partly the era, but you've seen martial arts movies too that come out of those era. So you know that you can get good choreography going on in those things. And let's be honest, that's really, in some sense, those fights are realistic, but those are literally how long it takes for them to throw a punch sometimes. That's not realistic at all. The way they're fighting is not realistic, really, in a lot of ways. But still, they're guys who clearly aren't out of shape, but they're not built really for combat. Whereas Ethan Hunt, when he gets into a fight, is clearly a guy who can handle himself much more capably in a fight than those guys can, particularly against someone of that caliber, like the old school Bonds. Again, not to say they can't fight. It's kind of that just very stilted. It's stiff fighting. That's what it is. Whereas I keep saying Jason Bourne. I keep trying to say James Bond, which turns into Jason Bourne when I mean Ethan Hunt. Whereas Ethan Hunt, you clearly see that he can block. He can, where the Casey Side, act and react. That's exactly what he's doing. And you can tell anytime, the moment they throw a punch, he would react, probably break an arm, take a gut shot, check him in the ribs, something like that. Go for the throat. He'd probably lay those Bonds out pretty quick. The two Bonds, though, that do pose a better threat to Ethan Hunt, though, are the Daniel Craig Bond and, to a lesser extent, the Pierce Brosnan Bond. Now, the Pierce Brosnan Bond, yeah, he's still stiff in terms of fighting to some degree. Like, it's not like he's a true martial artist. Like, Ethan Hunt, you can tell, Ethan Hunt's definitely got a lot more flow to him, but he's a lot more haphazard in what he does. He's a lot clumsier than Bond is. But we definitely get more of someone who can handle themselves in a fight with Pierce Brosnan's Bond when we see him actually go toe-to-toe with individuals who are capable of going toe-to-toe with him. Perfect example is that in GoldenEye, when he had to fight Alex 006, that fight they actually had was a legitimate fight where they're just going back and forth, just trying to go back. And you even see Bond employed some great blocks in that fight. Just, boom, he holds his arm up in the right way to just go boom, boom, because he knows that Alec is trying to go for him on both sides. So he's boom, blocking, and then he goes in and goes in for an opening when he sees it. Ultimately, Alex did win that confrontation, but you see how Bond is able to actually fight a lot more effectively in the Pierce Brosnan Bonds. So if you take that Bond and put him against Ethan Hunt, you will definitely have a Bond who can handle himself a lot more effectively against Ethan Hunt. But the problem, again, is if we're depicting these guys either at the peak of their abilities, in the peak of their physicality, Ethan Hunt is still, because honestly, I'll say this, Tom Cruise is quite frankly in the peak of his physicality at 55, which is nuts. So if you compare him to Bond, and particularly Pierce Brosnan's Bond, because we've seen both these guys without their shirts on, it's clear Tom Cruise is in better shape than Pierce Brosnan was at his peak. So, yeah, though, to be fair, Pierce Brosnan's awesome no matter what. What was it, November Man, where he was still being a badass and going on 60. He's still bad. I love Pierce Brosnan. I will see anything with Pierce Brosnan in it. Minus Mamma Mia, because Mamma Mia is loads of trash that I'm not even going to get into. But I still, I respect the fact that, he's Pierce Brosnan still. And Colin Farrell and Alex Skarsgård. So there you go. But, oh, God. Point being, so their fight would probably go a lot better in terms of Bond's ability to combat Ethan Hunt. But I think Ethan Hunt would still be the victor against the Pierce Brosnan Bond. The only Bond who I think legitimately would kick Ethan Hunt's ass is the Daniel Craig Bond, because he is the only one who is a literal physical beast when you see him. Like, literally, when we see him in Casino Royale, when we see him in how shape he got, it's like, oh God, this man would wreck me. Oh God. And we see that he is clearly the most capable fighter among any of the Bonds, having no problem killing someone with his bare hands. He's clearly a more experienced martial artist than any of them. Now, that helps that he's a modern-day interpretation of Bond, too. He clearly has no problem killing someone in a fight. And he's, unlike a lot of the other Bonds, whereas they were able to improvise on the fly, Daniel Craig's Bond seems to be able to improvise a lot easier, depending on what he has around him. Ethan Hunt is a great improviser as well. But the difference here is that we've seen, I think, Ethan Hunt get his ass kicked a bit more. I mean, not as wide a movie career, mind you, but he does seem to get his ass handed to him a bit more than Bond does. Like, the Daniel Craig Bond really didn't lose a fight up until he went against Dave Bautista in Spectre. But that was the Bond henchman fight, where Bond generally loses those fights anyway, because that's the henchman. Whereas he can take on no names without too much of a problem. So, ultimately, and the Daniel Craig Bond, that's the only fight we've really seen the Daniel Craig Bond lose overall. Whereas with Ethan Hunt, we've seen him lose more than a couple fights. Like in the last one with Rogue Nation, was it Rogue Nation? Was that the name of the last one? Oh crap. Okay, it was fourth one was Ghost Protocol. Rogue Nation was the fifth one. Crap, now I'm forgetting the sixth one. Give me 1 second here. I'm still on him. Here we go. Yeah, Mission Impossible, Operation. Where are the movies? Where are the movies? Where's the list of the movies he's been in? I literally still have Ethan Hunt's page up here right now. Mission Impossible Stand-Alone Series. It's gonna bother me. Mission Impossible Fallout. That's what it is. Wow, they already have plans for an 8th one, and the 7th one hasn't even finished shooting yet. Good for them. It's a series that's making hand over fist money, and they're entertaining films. They're entertaining as hell, so I can't judge them for doing it. I'm going to go see them. But particularly in that fight we see where it was 2-on-1, for God's sake. 2-on-1, Henry Cavill, Ethan Hunt, who's Henry Cavill's name I don't remember at all. I don't remember his character's name. He was cool. He was good in the movie. I just don't remember his character's name. Ethan Henry Cavill both got their asses kicked by one guy. It's clear. So yeah. Whereas Daniel Craig, we don't see him get his ass kicked that much, and usually he gets captured because of other means, like he got caught in a car crash or something like that, or got held hostage for another reason, whatever. So if Daniel Craig and Ethan Hunt meet up in a fight, first off, Daniel Craig's got a good how many inches on him? At least 4 or 5. He's like 6'2" or something. Daniel Craig's a tall guy. And we know Tom Cruise is not. So he's got a good couple inches on him. And more than anything else, to round this out, Daniel Craig's Bond is the meanest, grisliest, hard-cut Bond of them all. He's a Bond that does not give an F, and he will make sure you know it. So that fight's going to go down. And again, I think Ethan will put up a good fight against Bond, but ultimately Bond doesn't give a crap. He's probably going to break Ethan Hunt's arm at some point, or either just hit him in the throat and just basically break his neck. Like, he's going to kill Ethan Hunt. I have no doubt. So, long story short, against the Daniel Craig Bond wins. But unfortunately for Bond, against any of the other Bonds, Ethan Hunt, I think, ultimately wins. Now, again, the Pierce Brosnan one, I think, stands a better shot than the other ones. But ultimately, it is, I think, Ethan Hunt who takes the overall wins when you can put him against all the versions of Bond. Now, if you were to composite all the Bonds into one individual, say Daniel Craig's physicality and martial arts experience, the experience of everyone else there, then you'd have a different scenario. Then I'd actually give it overall to Bond if we're compositing them all into one character. But we're not, so Ethan Hunt takes the majority of these wins. Ethan Hunt wins it. I love Bond. If you're going to give me a choice between Bond and Ethan Hunt, I'll take Bond. But in terms of who I think wins the fight, ultimately, Ethan Hunt wins the majorities. But ultimately, what do you think? Do you think it's Ethan Hunt or do you think it's Bond? Now, to be clear, do you think Ethan Hunt can actually lose to... Again, take a shot to the head out of the equation. Like, just take a gunshot out of the equation. Because if it's a gun, then yeah, Bond could win any of those fights. But then again, so can Ethan Hunt. So there you go. But if... let me know if you think if Ethan Hunt actually does win as many as I think he does, wins them all, or if you were to composite it, would Bond win or would Ethan Hunt win? If you composite it, I still think Bond wins because you're compositing your Daniel Craig into all that Bond as well. But if you were to do them all individually, I think only the Daniel Craig Bond is the only one who can win. Ultimately, like actually the majority of the fights. Pierce Brosnan comes in second, and then it's just a crapshoot if you can, unless again you have a gun and they shoot Ethan Hunt in the head. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, who wants to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. I got a what if to do, and then I'll be done for the day. So thanks for watching, and see you later.